They thought you didn't see it. They thought you were distracted, emotional, naive. They built their confidence on the assumption that you were 2 steps behind, and you let them. You let them talk. You let them smile. You let them believe they were ahead of you. But here's the truth. You were never the one being played. You were observing, calculating, waiting. And now something has shifted. You can feel it. The tone in their voice, the way they look at you, the silence where arrogance used to live. Chosen one, they just realized who you really are. The illusion they built. They created a version of you in their mind. Smaller, easier to control, easier to predict, easier to dismiss. That version of you was convenient for them. That version made them feel powerful. And for a while, you allowed it to exist. Not because you believed it, but because you understood something they didn't. People reveal their true intentions when they feel superior. So you stayed calm. You stayed quiet. You watched. You noticed the subtle shifts, the backhanded compliments, the strategic delays, the conversations that changed tone when you entered the room. You noticed everything. And that's what makes this powerful. You were never unaware. You were collecting information. Every glance, every inconsistency, every contradiction. While they thought they were playing the game, you were studying the rules. Here's what they underestimated. Your silence was not weakness. Your patience was not confusion. Your restraint was not ignorance. It was discipline. You understood that reacting too early gives power away. So you waited. You let them feel comfortable. You let them think they were leading the narrative. Meanwhile, you were mapping it. And the illusion grew stronger. They became bolder, slightly careless, overconfident. That's what happens when someone believes they've outsmarted you. They relax. They stop guarding their words. They expose patterns. And patterns are predictable. You began to see the repetition. The manipulation wasn't creative. It was recycled, predictable, almost disappointing. But here's the hook. They mistook your composure for compliance. That was their first mistake, because compliance submits, composure calculates, and you were calculating. You saw how they tested boundaries. You saw how they tried to shift blame. You saw how they smiled while underestimating you. And every time they did, they unknowingly handed you more clarity. You didn't confront. You didn't accuse. You didn't dramatize. You elevated. Quietly, strategically. You adjusted your access. You adjusted your energy. You adjusted your availability. They didn't even realize it was happening. But the dynamic was already shifting. The illusion they built was cracking, not because you exposed it, but because you outgrew it. And now they're retracing steps, replaying conversations, noticing the moments you didn't react, wondering why you seemed so unbothered, wondering why you never chased validation, wondering if you knew more than you showed. You did. Chosen. 1. The illusion was never for you. It was for them. They needed to believe you were behind. Because if they admitted you were aware, they would have to confront the truth. And the truth is uncomfortable. You were never the one being played. You were the one allowing the performance to continue until it no longer served you. And the moment you stopped entertaining it, everything changed. The moment they felt the shift, it didn't happen loudly. There was no dramatic confrontation, no explosive argument, no grand announcement. That's what makes it powerful. The shift was silent, subtle, controlled. One day, you simply stopped responding the same way. You stopped explaining yourself. You stopped defending your intentions. You stopped giving energy where it wasn't respected. And that's when they felt it. Not immediately, but gradually. Like the ground beneath them was no longer stable. At first, they thought it was temporary, a mood, a phase. They assumed you would return to your old patterns, the accessible version of you, the predictable version, the easier version. But you didn't. You became selective, strategic, measured. Your words became fewer, Your presence became heavier, and silence from someone who used to engage? That silence is loud, louder than confrontation, louder than anger. They started noticing small things. You no longer reacted to subtle provocations. You no longer chased clarity from people who thrived on confusion. You no longer sought validation from those who withheld it intentionally. That was the second mistake they made, believing you needed their approval. When you stopped seeking it, the power dynamic flipped, quietly, completely. And here's the part that unsettled them the most. You looked calm, not bitter, not resentful, calm. That kind of calm signals certainty. It signals awareness. It signals that someone has already processed what others are still trying to manipulate. Your composure began to feel threatening, because calm people are not confused. Calm people are not lost. Calm people know. They began to test you again. Subtle comments, probing questions, slight attempts to regain emotional leverage. But the hooks didn't land. You didn't bite. You didn't flinch. You didn't over-explain. And in that moment, that precise moment, they felt it. The realization creeping in, the uncomfortable awareness that maybe, just maybe, you were never fooled. You could see it in their eyes, the micro-expressions, the hesitation before speaking, the sudden politeness. Energy doesn't lie. And the energy shifted. Because when someone realizes they misjudged you, their confidence cracks. And when confidence cracks, control dissolves. They replayed past situations privately, conversations they thought they dominated, moments they assumed you misunderstood. They started questioning their own narrative. Did they know? Were they aware? Was I the one being observed? That internal questioning is where the power transfer becomes irreversible. Chosen one, understand this clearly. The shift didn't happen because you attacked. It happened because you detached. Detachment is dangerous to those who rely on emotional leverage. When you withdrew your reactions, you removed their influence. When you removed your influence, you removed their illusion of control. Now they feel it. The absence, the distance, the subtle authority in your stillness. They sense they miscalculated. And nothing unsettles a manipulator more than realizing the board was never theirs. You don't have to say it. You don't have to prove it. Your energy already confirmed it. They just realized you were never the one being played. And that realization, it's only the beginning. The truth settled in. Realization doesn't hit all at once. It seeps in, slowly, quietly, like a weight pressing on the chest when the room is empty and there's no one left to perform for. That's where it found them. Not in public, not in front of you, but alone, replaying everything, reanalyzing your silence, reinterpreting your calm. And the more they replayed it, the clearer it became. You were never reacting because you already knew. That's the part that stings. They remember the moments they tried to confuse you, the subtle shifts in tone, the half-truths, the strategic omissions. They remember expecting you to question yourself, to overthink, to doubt your perception. But you didn't spiral. You didn't beg for clarity. You didn't chase reassurance. You adjusted, quietly, intentionally. That's when the narrative in their mind began to collapse. At first, they resisted the thought. No, they couldn't have known. But evidence is hard to ignore. Your timing, your distance, the way you slowly removed access without drama, the way you stopped investing emotionally before they even noticed the disconnection. That's not accidental. That's awareness. That's control. And here's the hook that changes everything. They realize you let them talk. You let them overplay their hand. You let them expose their strategy fully. While they thought they were ahead, you were gathering proof. not to use against them loudly, but to decide silently. That's dominance. Dominance isn't shouting. It's not intimidation. It's not chaos. It's control of information, control of emotion, control of timing. And you controlled all three. Now they feel exposed. Because the person they underestimated is the person who saw through them from the beginning. That realization destabilizes everything. Their confidence was built on the idea that you were unaware. Remove that assumption, and their entire position weakens. You may notice something now. The sudden respect, the careful wording, the subtle attempts to reconnect, the softer tone. That's not coincidence. That's recalibration. They're adjusting because they sense the hierarchy shifted. They thought you were emotional. You were observant. They thought you were behind. You were patient. They thought they were playing you. You were studying them. Repeat that. They thought they were playing you. You were studying them. Let that settle. The truth didn't just hit them. It humbled them, quietly, internally. And humility that comes from miscalculation is heavy, because it forces a person to confront their own arrogance, their own projections, their own insecurity. Chosen one, this is why you felt different lately. This is why the energy changed. It wasn't random, it was recognition. Recognition that you were never easy to manipulate. Recognition that you were never lost. Recognition that you allowed them to believe a story that protected your position. And here's what they're afraid of now. If you knew then, what else do you know now? That question will stay with them, because once someone realizes you were never the one being played, they start wondering how far ahead you actually are. And that uncertainty, it keeps them awake. The power they can't recover. This is the part they didn't plan for. They assumed that if the dynamic ever shifted, they could regain control. A conversation, a charm offensive, a subtle emotional hook, something to pull you back into the old rhythm. But what they don't understand is this. Once awareness reaches a certain level, it does not shrink. It does not regress. It does not forget. And you reached that level. You're not reacting because you don't need to. You're not confronting because you already concluded. You're not seeking closure because you already closed the door internally. That's the power they can't recover. The internal decision they weren't invited into. They can feel it. They feel the difference in your tone, the reduction in access, the absence of urgency in your responses. You don't rush anymore. You don't explain yourself anymore. You don't overextend anymore. And when someone realizes they no longer influence your emotional state, something in them tightens. Because influence was the real currency, and you stopped paying. Now they are left with something unfamiliar, uncertainty. They don't know what you're thinking. They don't know how much you know. They don't know if you're steps ahead or miles ahead. And that unknown, it shifts the balance permanently. Here's the deeper truth. You were never trying to win against them. You were trying to understand them. And once you understood them, the game ended for you. Not dramatically, not loudly, quietly. You detached. Detachment is final. It doesn't beg. It doesn't threaten. It doesn't negotiate. It simply removes access to your inner world. And once someone loses access to your reactions, your doubts, your insecurities, they lose leverage. That's what happened. They lost leverage. Chosen one, this is why the energy feels different now. It's not revenge. It's not ego. It's alignment. You aligned your behavior with your awareness. And when behavior aligns with awareness, power stabilizes. They may try subtle adjustments. More respect, more attentiveness, more calculated kindness. But it won't feel the same to you because you see the pattern now. And once you see the pattern, you cannot unsee it. You are calm because you are certain. You are distant because you are clear. You are quiet because you are ahead. Repeat that. You are calm because you are certain. You are distant because you are clear. You are quiet because you are ahead. Let it anchor. The truth didn't just hit them, it elevated you. And here's the final hook, the one that matters most. They realized you were never the one being played, but what they still don't realize is that you've already moved on mentally. And once the chosen one moves on internally, there is no return to the old dynamic. No reset, no second performance, only forward. And this time, you're not observing, you're leading.